This is a story about my mom. She's been living in the same house for about 12 years. It's in a shady neighborhood, lots of gang activity, and sirens can always be heard not far away. I can't count the number of times the convenience store across the street has been robbed since we moved in. But we were never concerned. My mother created an unquestionably comfortable home, and I always felt safe. In 2013, when my father died, she adopted a dog for company. It was just her living in the house at the time of when this incident occurred. The dog is yappy, sweet as hell, but any sort of noise outside, whether it's a car door slamming or our mailman, she will bark and bark and bark and bark. This can be scary if it catches you off guard or if it's late at night, but of course, it's also reassuring that she's so alert. And that's exactly what happened. My mother told me it was late one night, maybe 2 a.m. She was getting ready for bed. She stays up late watching Investigative Discovery and the like. There are 2 doors that must be opened to get inside the house. The front door has a large window and opens into a porch, where she keeps her deep freeze. There is a larger, metal door after the porch which opens directly into the living room of her house. She locks it every night before she goes to bed. She likes to sleep on her couch in the living room. She claims her bed upstairs hurts her back. All of a sudden, her dog starts barking her head off. At first, my mom scolded her, assuming she heard a car pass by or something. But then my mom heard it too. Someone was knocking on the front door. The doors had muffled the sound of the knock. My mom sat there silently, contemplating what to do, and hoping whoever it was would just go away. But it persisted, as her dog did. Now, my mother wasn't born yesterday. She's a tough old bird and won't take anyone's shit. She opened the metal door and went to the window, lifting the blinds. She saw a disheveled girl standing on the front step. My mom thought she was perhaps drunk, as she was unsteady on her feet and slurred when she spoke. My mom asked her what she wanted. "Is Danielle there?" the woman asked. "No, there's no one here by that name." My mom responded politely as she dropped the blinds and was about to go back into the house. The woman pounded on the door this time, with force. Lots of force, in fact. My mom thought she'd been kicking it. "Let me in!" she screamed. At this point, my mom is irked. She goes back to the front door, lifts the blinds again, and adamantly tells this woman to fuck off, that there is no one there named Danielle. The woman finally left, but it wasn't until the next day that my mom realized the trouble she could have been in if she had opened the door. Her front yard is surrounded by a short metal fence about waist high. She gives us hell anytime we forget to close the gate, and when she was retrieving the morning paper, she noticed this woman had left the gate open. Annoyed again, she put on her slippers to go outside to close it. That's when she saw it. Laying on the grass beside our walkway was a crowbar. My mom then understood what force was used to pound on our front door. She had no idea the woman had been holding it. The window itself can see a person on the other side from about the chest up, and it had been dark. Who knows what could have happened if my mother decided to open the door. 2 nights ago, while walking to my car, an older gentleman named Jeff asked me if I had a cigarette. I politely said no. He continued to talk out loud to himself whilst walking away, during which time he said, "I've gotten away with murder in Chicago." We get in the car, and 3 blocks later we stop at a light and he's there, leaning against a pole, smoking a cigarette. Fairly certain he's a time traveler. No way he could have gotten that far faster than us in the car. We stop at the light, and he points directly at me and then does the slicing your throat movement with his thumb. He had a straight, angry face, and we drove away thinking, did that guy just threaten my life because I didn't have a cigarette? At that point, it was creepy, but kind of funny. Fast forward to last night. 2 friends and I were downtown sitting outside at a brewery talking about what had happened. All of a sudden, the same guy comes walking up to our table out of nowhere. He walks past us. We get up to go inside, and he makes a U-turn and walks directly by me. We think, okay, that's weird, but there's no way he remembers me, or that he threatened me last night, right? We go to the back and play some foosball. A little over an hour later, we go to leave, and he's still right outside the door waiting for us to leave, looking at himself in the window, pumping himself up like Rocky before a fight. At that point, it wasn't really funny anymore. For the next 30 minutes, we sat there seeing what he would do, and he just stayed there waiting for us, me, to walk out. A few times we thought he had left, but he had actually just walked down the street to the entrance of the building my office is at where he originally saw us. At 11:55 p.m., he finally walked away and we walked to my car. My friends said that he was down the street, so we were fine, only to find that when we got to my car, he was standing right by it. Again, time traveler. We got in the car, and almost immediately a cop car pulled him over. We couldn't make out what they were saying, but it's fairly obvious something was wrong with this man, either drugs or an extreme mental disability. Regardless, the cops let him go and he walked away. What started out as a joke / kind of funny scenario ended up being kind of creepy and weird. Medium build, mid-40s, baseball cap, and walks really fast while talking to himself. Has anyone seen this guy or encountered him before? I hope he gets help. I'd love not to have to worry about getting killed every time I go downtown. This story includes a lot of paranoia, and it may be a long shot, but here we go. My family and I lived in a nice house in a relatively friendly town from the time I was 6 until I was 11. The town was generally safe, other than the time some guy tried to lure my sister into his car. From the day we moved in, the neighbors across the street hated my family. We were never quite sure why, but we figured it was because my mom had accidentally parked on their side of the street the first time we visited the house. Regardless, we embarked on a 5-year battle with them that continued back and forth until the day we inevitably moved out. But the story comes from the strange and somewhat creepy / unexplainable things that occurred while we lived across the street from them. The husband / father of the neighbor's household was in his mid-40s. He was bald and gave off kind of a creepy vibe. He would always stare at his teenage daughter, or my mom. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Joe. Joe's father was important in the township for some reason. This meant that Joe pretty much thought he ran my street, neighborhood, and basically anything within a 2-mile radius of his house. So he did whatever he pleased. This included taking my mom's parking spot, cursing and yelling at her, staring at us, and giving us dirty looks. He accused us of messing with his cars after we had lived there for 2 years, but we ignored it. Of course, we hadn't touched his vehicle, but he was willing to do anything to make us move out. About a year and a half before we eventually did leave the street, things took a turn in our little feud. My mom was the type of person to take things as a joke, so she would constantly make fun of his accusations and insults, until he put up cameras. He claimed to the cops in our area that the cameras were to prove that we were, in fact, messing with his cars. The only issue with his story was this: the cameras didn't even face his vehicles. They faced our house, all the way across the street. This meant that none of his cars were even in frame, and to make matters worse, one camera was pointed directly at my window. I was only 10 at the time, so from the point on, my mom made me keep my shades down and the curtain closed. Other neighbors in the town told us that they had gone into his house and seen the video footage, which really did point straight toward my window. I still get chills thinking about that. As if the cameras weren't bad enough, there were various points in which my basement would be broken into and holes would be drilled into the pipes. We had doors outside that led to our basement stairs, and no matter how much we locked them, the drilling didn't stop. We eventually had to nail wooden boards to the entrance. A few months before we moved, my mom had come home from the store late one night to see someone jump the fence that separated our yard from the street. The guy just stayed in his car and stared at her. To this day, my mom is convinced that all of those things were just tricks Joe was pulling to get us to leave. They worked. Joe, let's not meet again, because quite frankly, you're creepy, even if you didn't hire people to break into my house and basement. Hi there, thanks so much for watching. I'll be continuing to upload videos at a rate of 2 per week, so please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date with all of my uploads, and feel free to leave a comment or a like to let me know how I'm doing thus far. If you have a story that you'd like to have featured on this channel, please send it to readingrubyt@gmail.com, along with your name as you would like it listed on this channel, and express written permission for me to publish it here. I'll list that email address down in the description below so you can copy and paste it. Thanks again so much for listening, and stay safe out there.